If you enjoy my narrations, or the music that I compose for them, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment letting me know what types of videos you'd like to see in the future. With that said, enjoy the video. Happy New Year's. 25 minutes and I have to go. An odd amount of time, I know, but it's honestly all I have before I have to head out and get away as far as I can. I fucked up. No, that's an understatement. Not only have I ruined my own life, but the lives of 5,000 other people as well. It started at work this morning. I work for a company that develops app games. They started recently. About 3 months ago, a buddy of mine, Jimmy, was recruited by one of the owners, and he heard about an easy job that would allow me to make double what I make in sales. I'm not one of the developers, designers, or even interns. I'm the janitor, but they paid me well. My wife, Danny, was a little disappointed when she heard I would clean for a living, but her mood changed for the better as soon as I told her I'd be making a little over $4,500 a month. The job was easy. I would come into work around 8 in the morning, and by 2 in the afternoon I'd be done. It's amazing how much closer I've gotten with my family because of this job. When I worked in sales, I would work 13-hour shifts, and I pretty much missed the first 2 years of my son's life. Now, with my lighter work schedule, I've been able to get closer to Danny, and my son, Ryan, has become attached to me wherever I went. Hell, my boss even lets me bring Ryan to work on some days. He had fun hanging out with Jimmy and playing a couple of games Jimmy was working on. Life was good, up until today. It started out like any other day. I woke up, took a shower, ate a light breakfast, and got to work at 7:45. Around 2:30 I was finishing up when I saw Jimmy standing behind me. He was swaying a bit, like he had a little too much to drink before coming into work. With a chuckle, I asked him if he was feeling all right. He shook his head slowly and asked,
"Where's Ryan? I haven't seen him in a long time, and I have a new game I thought he would like to play."
Thrown off a bit, I nervously replied, "Shit, Jimmy, he was with me the other day. You sure you're all right, man? Didn't get enough sleep last night?" He just stared at me for a couple of seconds before getting on his knees. He stretched his arms out dramatically before latching onto my legs and pleading,
"Don't fucking go home. Don't leave work, please. Promise me, dude. Don't fucking leave."
I shook him off and quietly muttered, I gotta finish cleaning these floors. We'll talk later." Around 3:20, I managed to avoid Jimmy while I was leaving. I did manage to get a quick look at him without him noticing. He was softly banging his head against the desk. His lips were moving, but I couldn't hear what he was saying. I started to walk out the door when I heard a blood-curdling scream. By the time I managed to turn back around towards Jimmy, I saw him lying on the ground. He was stabbing himself repeatedly in the midsection. Bits of intestine started to leak out of the bigger gashes. A couple of guys tried to run up to him, but before anyone could stop him, he let out a loud sob and started to rip the insides out of his body. I don't know why, but I ran out to my car as quickly as I could and drove back home. I should have listened to his warning, but I refused to believe that my family was in any type of danger. I ran into the house to find no one was home. I called out Danny's name, but I was only met with silence. My phone started to vibrate. Without looking at who was calling, my finger accepted the call, and I heard a muffled voice in the background. I knew it was Danny. Before I could say anything, a gruff voice on the other end asked,
"Why didn't you listen to Jimmy? If you had just stayed at work, I wouldn't have had to do any of this. Since you were the first to leave, you will be our second experiment. It's for a new game. We want to make it as immersive as possible, so we figured, hell, using real people in real situations will probably give us the best insight. Are you at all..."
I cut him off and begged him to let me have my family back. I told him to take me instead, but he just laughed before saying,
"No, you already know that's not going to happen. Get ready. Go into your closet, you'll see a backpack with plenty of resources. Of course, the more accomplishments you achieve, the better the prizes get. Don't fail, or all 3 of you will die." You have 3 hours to get ready. Once the 3 hours is up, we will send you another call. Get in your car and drive as far away from home as you can. That way, the chances of you getting caught are less.
I tried asking him why I would need to be concerned about getting caught, but he hung up. The last thing I heard before he hung up was Ryan asking where I was. And that's why I only have 25 minutes. I spent an hour running through my house trying to find everything that could help me with whatever the fuck I needed to do. The next hour was spent going to the bank, taking out all the money in my account. $324. I suck at saving money, okay? 35 minutes was getting the bag out of the closet and getting everything in the car. The bag was pretty much shit. There was $8, 2 granola bars with the word health written on it, and 3 bottles of water. All right. I just got the warning call. It's time for me to go. It's a new year. I guess I don't really have a choice. Time for a new me. I'm a retired professor. One student in particular freaked me out. I'm a retired professor of psychology from Willington University. The following is my story regarding my time there. In particular, my time with Calvin Dowler. I taught a psychology class of more than 75 students who ranged from freshmen to seniors. The classroom itself was one of those theater-like rooms that you see in the movies. The chairs and their built-in boards ascended to the top of the room. Naturally, my more inattentive students sat in the very back, which is to say they sat at the very top, in the darkness. You see, I like my classroom's lighting a certain way. It's dimly lit. Any deviation from that interfered with my lecture. I couldn't, and still can't, concentrate with bright lights. My first assignment was to have the students write an essay on the topic of psychology, of course. The prompt was, "What do you think psychology is?" Some of the essays turned in were great. Others were expectedly half-assed. And some were never turned in at all. But Calvin Dowler's essay, my. It was as if he'd written it before he knew what was expected of him. Needless to say, I gave him full credit. He was the only one who got a perfect score. Mr. Dowler was an excellent student. Superb. Although I informed the class that I don't take attendance, he always showed up on time. Never missed a day. Never. He always walked in class with a wide grin on his face, giving the same greeting. "Morning, Professor Coyle." He was of average height, physically fit with dark brown hair and a baby face. In the beginning of the semester, he seemed to be able to make friends with the other students easily, but then time progressed, and with that comes change. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. As a professor of psychology, I'm quite good, and in fact certified for evaluating individuals. Sometimes that's my job. Mr. Dowler was an intelligent young man with an above-average IQ. I know this because he had told me he watched Rick and Morty. Isn't that something the kids say these days? All jokes aside, let's get back to my story. I began to notice odd behavior in the classroom. Not from Calvin. He remained his same happy self. I noticed the other students gradually moving farther away from him. At a time, Calvin sat at the front of the class, listening intently to every word I professed, along with several other students. This day, however, he sat at the same spot, alone. The other students sat together somewhere else. Why were they neglecting him? I thought to myself. One night, I sat in my kitchen grading papers. The assignment this time was to write an essay about a childhood experience that the students believed helped shape who they are today, whether it be in a positive or negative way. Then I read Calvin Dowler's essay. I picked it up, as I always did, with excitement and genuine anticipation. Like I said before, he was a great student who never failed to impress me. But this must have been a mistake. As my eyes raced down the paper, my heart began to beat rapidly. His essay was inundated with curse words and detailed gory descriptions of some event. One line read, "I tried to catch the bitch, but she was too fast." She hit me in the back of my head pretty good. Gotta give her that. There was blood everywhere, but I just sat there laughing like a lunatic. Whether or not these words actually transpired, I didn't know. The week before the end of the semester was what I called the opening of the floodgates. That's because students would come to my office to ask their questions before the final exam, hoping to salvage their grade in the last week. My office hours were late. They began at 6 p.m. and ended at 7:45 p.m. The students didn't like this, of course, but they also didn't like failing the classes. One student named Adeline walked in. She was one of my top performing students, so I wasn't surprised to see her show up so late to get some extra credit help. She also happened to be one of Calvin's friends, or former friend. I couldn't help myself. I asked her why she and the others were ignoring him lately. "Professor, Calvin's not what you think he is. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to get involved if you don't mind," she stuttered. She didn't look at me when she said that, implying something. I didn't know. There are several reasons why someone won't make eye contact with you in a conversation. That includes emotions of fear. So I let it go. I responded, "That's fine. I didn't mean to be a bother. I just found it strange because you all seemed to be getting along in the beginning of the semester." Adeline wasn't the last student who visited me during my office hours. One student after another came by to ask questions and get help before the exam, and then Calvin showed up. It was 7:53 p.m., and my office hours were now over. But I made an exception for Calvin. After all, he was my best student. But I also wanted to ask him some questions myself. He walked in and sat down, with his eyes on the floor the whole time. Before I could speak, he let out a quick, "Sorry." Pretending to be ignorant, I tilted my head, waiting for elaboration. "I think I sent you something in place of my actual essay assignment. That was an accident. I didn't mean to turn that in. I have no idea how it got mixed up in there. It's fine. Here you go." I handed back to him his foul, gruesome, curse-filled essay. He then unexpectedly got up and headed for the door. I asked him where he was going. "You sure you don't have any questions before the final?" "No, I'll be fine," he said. I didn't get to ask him my questions. Mainly, why did he write that in the first place? It was dark outside by the time he left, but I didn't leave just then. I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I began to connect the dots, sitting there at my desk, as if I was solving a mystery. Students have shunned him, including his best friends and his study group. He accidentally sends me this sadistic letter, which, even now, I have no idea if it's true or not. Moreover, he always had on this fake smile, this forced personality of happiness. But lately, he's been showing antisocial behavior. Adeline seemed horrified when I asked her about him. What's going on? Maybe this kid's a psychopath, but how did I miss something like that in one of my own students? Nonsense. He's just going through a phase, a very weird, unusual phase. As I sat there, thinking all of this, I noticed the time, 8:34. I grabbed my coat, switched off the lights, locked up my office, and left the building. I got in my car and started the engine. I drove off, speeding through the empty streets. I made a sharp turn, spilling my cold, forgotten coffee all over the passenger seat. When I arrived at the next stop, I took some time to clean it up a little. And that's when I noticed Calvin's letter. The same one I returned to him just a few minutes ago, sitting on the passenger seat. I was in shock and confused. As I continued driving, I adjusted my rearview mirror, only to find that a wide, male grin had filled it. I used to work at a suicide hotline. All names have been made up for confidentiality reasons. You'd be surprised at how many non-suicide calls we get. Sometimes lonely people would call because they were being bullied, depressed, or in an abusive relationship. Other times we'd get prank calls, or just really disturbing ones. As operators, even if a creep calls, we'd just be frank and tell them that no one wants to hear about their awkward fetishes. I used to work as an operator at a suicide hotline company, which I won't name for obvious reasons. But over the years of volunteering, there were many calls that deeply affected me or left me speechlessly confused. One of my most baffling incidents was with this girl named Kelly. I was quite new to operating when a girl named Kelly called. Kelly's case was quite different from the ones I was used to handling, such as prank calls, actual suicide calls, creep calls, etc. She had called asking for advice on her suicidal best friend.
Hello? My name is Kelly. Can you help me?
Of course. We're here to help.
I think my friend is suicidal.
What makes you think that?
She told me once she wasn't happy at home. She sometimes gets picked on at school, but sometimes she mentions suicide. I just want to help her, but I don't know what to do. I don't want her to commit suicide. She's my best friend.
Kelly talked hastily, her nerves showing in her voice. Okay, Kelly. I can call you Kelly, right?
Oh, sure.
Okay, Kelly. Let's not jump to any conclusions right away. Has your friend been acting strangely?
Kind of. She's avoiding me. Avoiding everyone, really. She doesn't respond to calls or texts from me or anyone. It's like she doesn't exist outside of school. She quit art club, which she loves, or used to anyway. I'm worried because she never has done anything like this. Completely shutting down.
Have you tried speaking to her about this?
No. I'm scared that she'll distance herself more or hate me.
And why would she hate you for worrying about her?
Yeah, you're right, but how would I bring up the topic, though?
Remember, hypothetically, your friend might also be afraid of being hated and avoided by you too.
So she doesn't get hurt?
Yeah, you could say it that way. But this is just hypothetically.
Okay, I get it. I think I know how to talk to her. Thanks so much for listening. I think I just needed someone to listen to my worries.
No problem. Good luck with your friend.
Wait, can I have your name so maybe I can talk to you again?
Oh, well, we generally aren't allowed to give that out, but ask for Robbie the next time you call, and I'll try to be with you again.
Okay, thanks, miss. Have a good day.
That was Kelly's first call. I was quite proud of myself for being useful to someone, but my conversations with Kelly were soon forgotten as I carried on taking calls. About a month passed by normally, until Kelly's next call. At the time, I wasn't taking any calls, for I was on a little break. Anne, another one of the volunteer operators, rushed over to me saying there was an urgent call. The person refused to talk to anyone but me. A person named Kelly. Kelly? It's me, Robbie. Is something wrong? There was a faint muffled sound that sounded like yelling.
My friend, she's threatening to jump. I don't know what to do.
I was taken back for a moment. I took a second to fully process what was happening. I kept myself from freaking out. I couldn't. I wouldn't let Kelly lose her best friend. Kelly? Kelly? Please try to calm down. Take deep breaths. We've got to have a clear head in order to help your friend, okay?
Yeah. I called the police already. They're on their way. I'm sorry. I just needed someone. Anybody. They told me to stall her from jumping, but
That's perfectly fine. I'm here for you, okay? There was a few moments of silence and more muffled yelling.
I'm sorry.
Kelly, are you still there? There was no reply. The only sound was the loud shuffling of wind, like the sound the video picks up as you're running.
No, Bree, please, don't go. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for not being there. Bree, I'm begging you, don't leave me.
Kelly was yelling at the top of her lungs, the phone filled with her crying and voice breaking. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but nothing came out. All I could do was sit there, listening, eyes tearing up.
Miss!
The line abruptly cut. The last thing I heard was what I hoped to be a policeman or passerby who was alerted of the situation. I burst into tears as soon as I regained my senses, and the throbbing numbness in my chest was replaced by a sharp stab of guilt and grief. I felt dizzy and sick, so I excused myself for the day, the other workers being very understanding of my early leave. The rest of the day, I tried my best to calm myself down. I told myself I wouldn't have been able to do anything, that I tried my hardest, and did what I could. The next morning wasn't any better. It was honestly a miracle that I could even wake up in the morning. My eyes were swollen and puffy, my pillow was stained with tears, and my hair resembled that of a bird's nest. The small hope that Kelly and her friend had still managed to make it out safe and alive gave me the strength to go back to work that exhausting morning. A few weeks passed by, but the incident was still fresh in my mind. I had managed to accept what had happened, and although it still hurt thinking about it, that traumatic experience made me work harder. It was, after all, my first death, made me want to push myself harder to not let that happen again. The wounds from that day were beginning to close, and although I had fully accepted never knowing whether or not Kelly's friend turned out to be okay, I found out anyway. No, I didn't go investigating. Kelly never once mentioned where she lived, so that was already out of the question. Instead, I bumped into Kelly at a cafe. I had just finished ordering a vanilla latte when a young girl walked up to me. She had long, wavy, light brown hair, pulled up into a high ponytail, and large dark eyes that made her look like she was in constant shock. Freckles peppered her hopeful face. She looked to be around 15. I didn't recognize her. "Excuse me, is your name by chance Robbie?" I nodded. "Yeah, I'm Robbie. I'm sorry, but do I know you?" "It's me, Kelly," she said. "Oh my God," I blurted. "How's your friend? Did she..." She shook her head. "Bree? Oh, she's fine now. I don't really remember what happened. The policeman that helped me said I fainted, and that... She trailed off for a second, as if remembering something. But before I could ask anything, like a rubber band snapping back in place, she was back to normal. "Anyways, thank God. I thought I recognized your voice, but I was afraid I got the wrong person, or you were the wrong Robbie. Are you here with anyone?" I shook my head. "No, just getting a drink. I've got no plans for today. What about you?" She nodded to go to the back of the cafe at a small table for two. "I'm actually here with Bree. She's gotten a lot better. Her parents are taking her to therapy. I'll introduce her to you." I smiled. "Sure." She led me to a little table for two and walked up to one of the empty chairs. "Brianna, meet Robbie, the woman that helped me. Robbie, this is Brianna Rose, my best friend." I stood there shocked. She was talking to an empty chair. Brianna Rose. Where have I heard that name before? Rest in peace, Brianna Rose, 17/9/12. The image of a memorial for a girl who committed suicide flashed through my mind. I would pass it every once in a while when I went to that part of town. What horrified me more was that Brianna Rose died 2 months before Kelly's first call. The first thing to die was the class Goldfish. The Goldfish was the first thing to die. Goldfish die sometimes, right? That's no reason to suspect foul play. Certainly no reason to suspect the children had anything to do with it. Only then all the class potato plants died. The class project shriveled up and blackened and dead. The kids said the plants looked just like dead snakes. You know kids, they've got such vivid imaginations. Miss Robbins died next. She had a heart attack right there in class. The kids just sat there and watched. They found her dead with the phone in her hand, the line cut clean in two. Must have been some kids playing with scissors, right? The substitute broke her leg on the way to work. Slipped on a patch of ice, would you believe it? Had to have surgery to get it fixed. There was a complication. She died on the table. Too much anesthesia. The class pen pals stopped writing back. When the administration tried to contact the other school, nobody answered the phone. Maybe the secretary was let go. The town pets started to disappear. We figured the coyotes must be coming into town. People started carrying their guns with them. Never know when you might see a coyote. Darren Anderson had his throat cut. His children disappeared. Could have been those child kidnappers. Sometimes they come up from the border and take kids down to Mexico. Paula Torini vanished too. They found her intestines smeared on the ceiling. The kids were gone, and there was a trail of blood leading out to the forest. The town police started shooting coyotes on sight. The kids sang nursery rhymes about Miss Robbins, Darren Anderson, and Paula Torini. They sang about the devil's hands dragging us down to hell. The school banned nursery rhymes. It didn't help. People barricaded themselves in their homes. The phone lines all went dead. Some people tried to leave, but their cars went off the road. People fell asleep at the wheel or blew a tire. It happens. On the night of June the 7th, the kids all disappeared. Bloody trails out to the woods. But the church was burnt to ash. They couldn't figure out the cause. The fire marshal said lightning must have hit the roof, set the dry wood off. After the kids left, all the adults drifted out of town. No sense sticking around. It's the strangest thing. I can't remember the place's name. People forget things, I guess. The plants in my garden died last night. Went all black and shriveled up. And looked like dead snakes. Sometimes at night I can hear the voices of the children, singing nursery rhymes. They sing about Miss Robbins, Darren Anderson, and Paula Torini. And then they sing about me. My grandpa unfriended me on Facebook. Hey everyone, I'm a little weirded out by something and I could use a little advice. My grandpa's been dead for about 10 years, but before he died, he made a Facebook account. I never unfriended him because it felt like I still had a connection with him as long as I could go back and read our old conversations. Well, a few weeks ago, I noticed my friend count had gone down by 2. I never had many Facebook friends, so I knew it had to be 2 of my close friends or relatives who unfriended me. Eventually, I realized it had to be Grandma or Grandpa. I thought maybe Facebook had closed Grandpa's account because he had been dead for so long, but that didn't explain Grandma. Also, I could still find both of them by searching their names. I don't know why, but I tried adding them both again. Almost immediately, the option to add Grandpa returned, so I knew my request was ignored. The request to add Grandma remained pending for a few hours, but eventually that one was ignored too. All this is a little beside the point, and more detailed than you probably care about, but I need to tell someone because it's all really strange to me. I wanted to tell the whole story. My grandmother is still alive. I don't visit her as often as I should, maybe a few times a year. She is not very tech-savvy, but she's on Facebook once or twice a month. And after a few hours of painstakingly guiding her through online banking, she even managed to start paying her bills online. But other than that, Facebook is about the most complicated computer thing she can handle. I asked my mother, and she checked her own account. She had been unfriended as well. She about had a small meltdown when she called Grandma and she didn't pick up. I live pretty close to my mother, so she came and picked me up, and we drove to my grandmother's house. It's only an hour away. Really, there's no excuse for visiting her as seldom as we do. Grandma was home, and she was happy to see us. When my mother demanded to know why she hadn't picked up the phone, she said that she'd been to Grandpa's grave. She didn't seem to think Mother had any reason to be upset, but she invited us in and asked if we wanted to stay for dinner or coffee. We decided to remain for a few hours. As I said, we really should have visited more often, and every time we visit it's clear Grandma likes having us. We feel guilty about it when we're there for once. But life moves pretty quickly. There's always something else we need to do. My grandma has an old piano. I'm not very musically inclined, but it's very nostalgic for me to hear Mother and Grandma play on that piano, which they did, as they always do when I visit. It felt good. It felt normal. But I told myself that she probably just had an old person moment and logged into Grandpa's account for some reason. But I was still curious, so I did ask her during dinner. She looked embarrassed, and she said that she just didn't feel like using Facebook anymore, so she tried to close her account. We said the accounts were still open though, but she waved it away. We finished dinner and helped her with a few things around the house. She was happy to have us there, and again, everything felt normal. Eventually, we went home. A few weeks passed. I and my mom both called Grandma once or twice, and everything seemed normal. But late last night, one week, I decided to look up my grandparents on Facebook again. The profile pictures had changed. Grandma used to change hers every now and again, and the new ones didn't look unusual. Grandma said she stopped using Facebook, and there was no reason at all for Grandpa's account to have new pictures. I brought it up with Mother the next day, and she had the same feeling as I did. Something was off. We went to visit Grandma again yesterday. She was glad to see us like always. In fact, she seemed happier than she had been in a long time. We asked her about Facebook again, and she said that she hadn't been on it. When we mentioned the profile pictures changing, she said maybe she'd been on there once or twice. She didn't want to talk about it, so we let it drop. We helped her with a few chores around the house again, but this time my curiosity was stronger. So I made sure I had an excuse to go into her bedroom while she was in the kitchen with Mother, and I turned on her computer. I know all of her passwords because she never changes them, and she has all of them written down on a little notepad next to her laptop. It was a cheap piece of crap the day we bought it for her half a decade ago, but she only uses it for very basic things like writing about her childhood. She lives out in the middle of nowhere, and she grew up in a retirement home in the 1930s, so she knows more about the area and the people who used to live here than pretty much anyone. But she had a Tor browser. She's not stupid, my grandma, but she's always been very, very bad at computering, like a lot of old people. So this surprised me. Even my parents probably don't even know what the Tor browser is used for. So my grandma definitely shouldn't. Hell, I don't even know that much. Only time I ever used it was when I was looking into the darknet back in the day. That was a very brief and shallow visit. I clicked on Tor, and it opened up to a normal search engine. No bookmarks, no browsing history, nothing. Considering she was in the habit of writing all of her account's names and passwords down on the post-it notes and leaving them by the computer, I figured she probably didn't use Tor. I closed it, opened up her regular browser and went to Facebook. She was logged in. She had unfriended everyone. Everyone except Grandpa. And this is what creeps me out. There were posts on both her and Grandpa's timelines going back to the day that she unfriended everyone. Some posts were from his account. The rest were from hers. They replied to each other. It looked like real conversations. Grandma would sometimes take minutes to reply, sometimes hours, but Grandpa's replies were all almost instantaneous. There were old pictures of them back when they were younger, from back before digital cameras even. I suppose it's possible Grandpa might have learned how to scan photos or paid someone to do it for her, but why would she fake conversations with her dead husband? I was starting to worry something was seriously wrong with Grandma. I took a few photos of the screen with my phone, and then I went out into the kitchen. I joined the conversation for a little bit. Then I whispered to Mom and told her to go into the bedroom while I talked to Grandma. I kept her busy for around 20 minutes until my mom came back. She looked a little pale, so she must have found the whole thing as creepy as I did. But now what? We didn't know what to do. I sneaked back into Grandma's bedroom, with the intention to turn her laptop off before she noticed we'd turned it on at all. But then I saw there was a new message waiting for her, from my grandpa. I opened the chat window, and it read, "Have Angie and Charlie already left?" My mother's name is Angela, so Angie isn't that strange of a nickname, but nobody calls me Charlie except my grandparents. Charles is my middle name, and most people don't even know I have one. So I was a little bit disturbed that someone was calling me that when talking to my grandmother using her dead husband's account. I took a photo of that as well, then closed the browser and turned her laptop off. My mother and I said our goodbyes and left. Everything about my grandma's behavior seemed normal, and she was sad to see us go like always, but I know for a fact that it couldn't be her who had written that message, since she was in the kitchen the whole time. This happened yesterday. I have no idea what's going on. It feels wrong. I mean, I know something is clearly off, but I have no idea what it could be. How do I even look into this more? Do we just confront Grandma about this? I have no idea where to turn, so if anyone here has any ideas, please. I'm completely in the dark. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked any of the music that you heard throughout the video, you can listen to my music on Spotify and iTunes. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.